Welcome to Arise News. This is the Global Business Report, and we are live in Abuja as the Minister of Power, Minister Adelabu, is speaking on the electricity sector in Nigeria.
That we deserve. And lastly is to encourage energy consumption management by consumers. One bitter truth that we also need to tell ourselves as Nigerians. We are all Nigerians. A few people are only privileged to sit on the high table here. We are on the same level. We must be able to talk the truth to ourselves. We don't have the culture of consumption management in this country in terms of power, just because of the cheapness of the tariff we pay on power. A lot of people will come back from work. They want to have dinner, or they want to play with their colleagues down the road. They switch on the AC for the room to be cooling before they come back. Yes, some people will be going to work in the morning. A freezer has been left on for days. They will still leave it on when all the items in the freezer are already frozen. And 5, 6, 8 hours of their absence will not make it to defreeze. They will still leave it. It will consume power just because we are not paying enough. We've all been overseas before. We know how conscious the power consumers are to consumption of electricity. Thank you very much. I will round up soon. So this will also enable us, thank you very much. This will also enable us to manage our consumption. Hello. Ladies and gentlemen, let me round up this. I want to say this before I round up, that there is also service tracking and consequence management and penalties on consumption. We are carrying out a number of initiatives to ensure that we improve activities and performance of the sector. We have the presidential power initiatives, which we are actually carrying out to ensure that infrastructure are enhanced and improved across the sector, both transmission and the distribution sector. There's also the PMI, the Presidential Monitoring Initiatives, to which we are going to discuss elaborately, maybe in another forum, to ensure that we close the huge meter gap that we have in the industry. And we also have a lot of development banks that are working with us with projects in transmission and distribution to ensure that we enhance the activities here. So as a ministry, we are committed to make an impact during this administration. We are ramping up generation by opening up more generation points. An example is the Zogeru that's about to start operation, and we also have our projects in renewable energy across the country. We are also enhancing transmission. We are strengthening the capacity and of the national grid by establishing more substations. We are installing more lines. We are introducing SCADA, that's the security control and data control, which is the automated control of frequency on the national grid that will prevent frequent grid collapse. Then we are trying to look for creative ways to curb vandalization in addition to the effort of the National Security Advisor. Then we are talking about providing the super grid, which is the backup or failover grid. For distribution infrastructure deficiencies, we are installing new lines, we are reconducting the old lines, we are also introducing new injection substations and revamping the existing ones, while we are looking at existing weak distribution transformer. I've mentioned the issue of reduction of meter gap and investment in communication and advocacy to reorientate and educate our people of the need to cooperate with the operators in the power sector in terms of protecting our national assets, in terms of avoiding power theft, bypassing of meters and all that. So all these are what we are doing, and we believe that very soon you start seeing the positive results of activities in the power sectors, from policy formulation and execution to control and to operation of the power sector. I would like to stop here and allow the Executive Vice Chairman to talk briefly about the modalities around the recent increase in the tariff of Band A customers, which is just 50% of the total customers. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Honorable Ministers. Please permit me to stand with assistant protocol. The Honorable Minister of Power has covered a lot of ground and just want me and play a supporting role because since the order was released, we've addressed you, we've gone to different places to talk about the technicality behind it. So I will first and foremost support the policy direction that the Honorable Minister, who has the oversight over the power sector generally, has talked about. But I would like to just highlight a few things. First, 85% of electricity consumers are not affected by the rate review. Secondly, the rate review that has taken place is pro-poor rate review. I can provide further explanation on that. But before I do that, the Honorable Minister mentioned one figure, which is correct. They are proud to review 67% of the cost of generation, transmission, and distribution was being subsidized by the government. And I want you to take the word generation, transmission, and distribution, because I will now provide another perspective. So I quoted the Honorable Minister from so that you don't report any contradiction. I want to provide another perspective to it. In January, the generation invoice was 240 billion to the DISCO. DISCOs were only mandated to pay 24 billion. That is 10%.
10%.
So that tells you that 90% of the generation cost, in this case, you know, I didn't mention transmission and distribution, so that I don't think that the figures are different. 90% of the generation cost was being borne by the government. Okay. And I think a lot has gone into discussion around how much it amounts to over a year. The Honorable Minister has also spoken to that. So with this, and out of that, now with the review, that means that about 50% of the generation cost will now be subsidized by the government. Okay. So what that tells you, 50 minus 90 minus 50 tells you that there is a reduction of about 40% by reducing the rates to the elites practically. That means that 15% of Nigerian customers account for 40% subsidy on the generation cost. Now the government has said that okay, this elite, because it's clear the type of infrastructure, the sophistication of the infrastructure in Maitama is different from the sophistication of the infrastructure in Yanyana. And the people living in areas like Maitama, Sokoro, and so on, Ikoyi of this world, they are richer than other people, and they have heavy energy consuming appliances. So that if you as a person or other Nigerian consume 1 kilowatt hour, let's say per day, or about 1 hour, these people will consume multiple of that. That means that they benefit more from the subsidy.
Yes.
So now what we have done is to now say, okay, let the people that need this subsidy actually be the one to benefit. And the Honorable Minister has talked about some of the gains that will come if the government is relieved of this fiscal burden of about 1.4 trillion naira reduction. We have health, we have education, and we have investment needs in the sector. And he has also talked about many technical things, which we talked about previously, that we need to incentivize investment. If there is no path to recovery, nobody will come and invest.
All right, the discussion continues, the press briefing on power. The explanation, of course, being that 15% of the population is responsible for about 40% of what is consumed. And so, therefore, that tariff increase is going to majorly affect the elites, as is being explained right now. They will bear most of that cost, which will hopefully move the generation costs from 90% on the government's balance sheets down to about 50%, with that being moved over to the higher consumers. So